Local 4 News starts now with a breaking news alert.
And we're following breaking news here at noon. A bank robbery in Roseville has led to a police chase in Detroit. This is video from Sky 4 overhead as police search for suspects through neighborhoods on the city's east side. We are working to get more information from police about the robbery and the chase. We're going to update you as we get more information. And now to our other top story here at noon. A popular Detroit deli is damaged in an early morning fire. And as we head into our lunchtime rush hour, Mudgie's Deli in Corktown is now closed because of that fire. Local 4's Megan Woods joins us now live just outside of the deli on Brooklyn near Porter Street. And Megan, what do we know about the extent of damage, and have you heard what could have caused this fire?
Well, the damage is minor, but fire investigators are out here. They are trying to figure out what caused this fire. But if you're heading to Mudgie's for lunch today, we have to tell you it is closed. So don't come out here today. But the damage is only limited to the wine shop. Fire crews were called out here early around 4 this morning, left, and were called back to the restaurant just a few hours later around 9. But again, they say the damage is minimal. You may remember the owner, Greg Mudge, died in September. So this restaurant has been through a lot the last several months on top of juggling the pandemic. That's why people living nearby, like Alexander Ord, were so worried when they heard the sirens earlier.
I was super nervous, and as soon as we saw it, I woke my girlfriend up, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's Mudgie's." And I put my sweater and my jeans on, and I came right over, and it was Mudgie's. Luckily, there was just a little bit of damage going on, but we didn't know that at the time because it was like big hoses and the fire trucks were out and that type of stuff.
He said he came back to see if the deli needed any extra help cleaning up the damage. We'll have more on that story later on tonight. Live in Corktown, I'm Megan Woods, Local 4.
All right, Megan, thank you. Turning now to the war in Ukraine. It's now in its third week and doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. This morning, top diplomats from Russia and Ukraine met for the highest level talks since the invasion began. But the meeting was short and no progress was made to end the fighting. Ukraine says that a Russian airstrike on a maternity hospital killed 3 people, including a 6-year-old child. And this morning, Vice President Kamala Harris urged a war crimes investigation during a visit in Poland. Here's Bree Jackson now in Washington with more on the vice president's agenda.
Vice President Harris is in Poland today, where she met with the Polish president and will meet with Ukrainian refugees. Her trip comes as Russia appears to be ramping up its attacks on civilians. More heartbreaking images coming out of Ukraine. Officials there say a Russian airstrike destroyed a maternity hospital Wednesday, leaving children under the wreckage.
I cannot realize why it's necessary for Russian troops to destroy hospitals.
As Ukrainians flee to safety, Vice President Kamala Harris meets with leaders in Poland to discuss the crisis.
The United States and Poland are united in what we have done and are prepared to do to help Ukraine.
This after the U.S. rejected Poland's plan to provide Ukraine with fighter jets, but have the U.S. deliver them.
We're making deliveries every day in terms of what we can do in terms of assistance, and in particular, when you look at what we've been doing as it relates to anti-tank and anti-defense systems, that is an ongoing process, and that's not going to stop.
Ukraine's president urging the country's supporters to create a no-fly zone or share responsibility for a humanitarian catastrophe. Top diplomats from Ukraine and Russia met in Turkey, the highest level of talks thus far, but a low level of progress. U.S. and European allies believe Moscow's invasion is about to take a more brutal turn. Ukrainian civilians are preparing to fight back. And late last night, the House passed a massive spending bill to avert a government shutdown and provide nearly $14 billion in aid to Ukraine. The measure now heads to the Senate. In Washington, I'm Bree Jackson for NBC News.
Bree, thank you. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs says now that it's closing operations in Russia, becoming the first major Wall Street bank to make that move. Detroit-based Little Caesars is also suspending operations in the country as well. Gas prices are still going up, and a lot of people are changing their habits to try and save more money. AAA says that the national average is now $4.31 a gallon. Here in Michigan, we are at an average of $4.26 per gallon. But our crews did capture gas for $4.59. This is at a gas station in Southfield. The State House voted to freeze Michigan's 27-cent per gallon gas tax, but it's not clear if Governor Whitmer would actually go for that. She joined 5 other governors, though, to call on Congress to suspend the 18-cent federal gas tax. And as Morgan Chesky reports, experts say that it might not be saving much as you might think.
And these rising gas prices could reach a potential tipping point for too many people. Here in Texas, we're still below the national average, but look at that, $4.09 for a gallon of unleaded, diesel even higher, nearly $5.50 for one single gallon. And it's those rising costs that are bringing very real consequences for too many drivers. Now, in order to try to stop or slow the pain at the pump, a group of 6 Democratic governors have written Congress asking to repeal the federal gas tax, which could bring a potential savings of 18 cents a gallon. But there are a lot of critics that say that because this is such a complex issue, impacted by the price of crude and supply and demand, that it will not be 18 cents worth of savings passed along to customers. However, any little bit helps. Just over here, I spoke to a truck driver who fills up his tank typically around $500. By the time he left this gas station yesterday, it cost him $963 to fill up. He says that extra cost only has one place to go, and that is back down the line to the consumer. Morgan Chesky, NBC News, Dallas.
All right, and it is not just the price of gas that has gone up so much. Now inflation has actually hit a 40-year high. The Labor Department says that inflation jumped nearly 8% over the past year, making that the biggest spike since 1982. Gas prices jumped more than 6%, making up nearly a third of February's increase. Food costs are up about 1% in February, and airfares jumped 5%. The Federal Reserve is set to raise interest rates next week to stem the inflation surge. Well, it is the first full day of testimony in the trial of 4 men charged in the plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Prosecutors opened the day by showing jurors profanity-filled messages and social media posts from 2 of these 4 defendants. In one video, one man says that he wants to bring charges against the governor, and then another calls for her to be hung. Prosecutors say that the men plotted to kidnap the governor because they were angry about her pandemic orders. The defense claims, however, that the men were on drugs and not serious about the plan. Our Sean Lay is following today's developments in the courtroom. He's going to have much more coming up on Local 4 News ahead at 5 this afternoon. Well, we do want to talk about your forecast on this Thursday or Friday Eve, as we like to call it. And Brandon, we should enjoy things right now because tomorrow they're changing. And yes, we know you like it.
Well, we have brand new information about the storm on Friday. And the news isn't all bad. It just isn't all good. And we're going to get more details and more into this in a moment. But the start time is moved up. Instead of more of an afternoon storm Friday, this is going to happen in the overnight hours, early Friday. A nuisance to a disturbance as far as snow totals, and we'll discuss that more. How about a March polar vortex to begin the weekend? Just unusual stuff, but it's March. You know it. Low and middle 30s. Outside right now, pretty light winds and filtered milky sunshine. We have 37 on our way to 39 at 2 p.m. and a high of 41. Not much in the way of big sunshine, but we get a little of that milky and filtered sun, and that is as good as it gets. Again, we'll look at that Friday storm and the bitter cold weekend before spring.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much. We'll be checking in with him in just a little bit. We do want to talk about the TSA now extending the mask mandate on planes and other public transportation, and that's been extended until April 18th now. That's according to a White House official. The TSA was set to end the mandate this month, but again, it's been extended, and this is supposedly to allow the CDC time to develop a new policy for when masks might be needed on public transit. It's going to be based on community transmission of COVID. Well, today, speaking of which, marks 2 years since the first case of coronavirus was confirmed here in Michigan. Other key dates include on March 17th of 2020, the state reported its first death from the virus. And since then, 32,374 lives have been lost. On March 23rd of 2020, Governor Whitmer issued the first stay-at-home order. And then on December 15th of the same year, the first vaccine doses were administered. Beaumont Health marked the anniversary today by putting into perspective how far we've come.
This is a good time to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. I'm using this time, this sort of quiet time, to fortify our position in terms of resources, to start prepping for whatever may come next, making sure we're stocked up on tests, making sure that we've got masks, cleaning supplies, all the things that we need to survive another surge.
And Beaumont says that there are only 90 COVID patients across 8 hospitals right now. That is the lowest that the hospital group has seen since August of 2021. All right, so to come here at noon, with gas being so expensive, police are seeing thieves use a new tactic to steal it from your car. We're going to tell you what to look out for. And a new revelation about the death of a D.C. police officer who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. That's next.